Yeah, last night I was watching YouTube and I went on to Jefferson King and and the way Jefferson King is, yeah. And me and Jeff go back a long way, yeah, a really long way. And it's a shame the way things ended up between me and him, yeah. But I can remember so much about Jeff. I mean, he used to train in my mate's gym, in G's gym in Bollywood Road, Bollywood Lane, yeah. He used to work in there, training there, and he's powerful, man, big man. But before that, he used to train in a gym in Southall. I think it was called Dean's Gym or something like that. A lot of people used to train there, Bertle Fox and Jefferson King and a few other big, powerful black guys, yeah. And it was a dump, really, but it was them sort of places, the old sawdust ones, was the ones, yeah. And I got a gym not far from here, yeah. And in the gym, I've got 4 dumbbells that are in the corner by the punch ball, right? And one's about £110, 2 dumbbells, each are about £110 each. And the ones at the back are about £150, £60 each. And them ones is what Bertle Fox and Jefferson King used to use. Yeah, they used to press them, not benching. I'm on about seated press. I mean, they're phenomenally strong. I mean, it doesn't matter being on all sorts of stuff. If you ain't strong, it doesn't really matter what you're taking, you know what I mean? But Jeff was such a powerful man, really powerful. And then, as I say, he used to go down my mate's gym, G's gym in Bollywood Road or Bollywood Lane, and and he was massive, mate. He was everybody loved him because he used to be on Gladiators. He was Shadow, and everybody liked him, because he was the most powerless man on Gladiators when he used to knock them all, he used to bash them all up, and he was just a powerhouse, Jeff, and he still was a powerhouse, yeah. And I used to see him, walking down the road, sometimes towards where I used to live with my mum, yeah, not live, but when I stayed there looking after her, when I come out of prison, and my mum died, didn't she, later on, but I see Jeff walking down the road and he was huge. He was big man, and all of a sudden it just disappeared. And I then, got a place in Harrow. I'd seen Jeff before and, massive guy. He worked with me on the door at Central Park in Acton, and he was huge, man. He was 22, 23 stone, a giant of a man, yeah. But when you work in clubs down the city and you're working with big guys, the clubs down the city are a lot different to the clubs around your own areas, because the people in there are a bit nutty, a bit mad, you know what I mean? And that's the place that I used to run, yeah. Everybody respected me, but no one knew. They knew who Jeff was from the Gladiators, Jefferson King, but after a while, anyway, leave that out that bit anyway. And then, things happen, and then I didn't see Jeff, and all of a sudden, then I was told that, Jeff was off the training, off the roids, and he was down south or somewhere, yeah. Well, then I moved to Harrow, and 2 girls come to see me in Harrow, and we done a podcast with them, me and KON TV. And he's now Guilty TV, like Christian Morgan, yeah. And he's like, but at that time he was KON TV. So we invited them down, and they was both on a snozzle, you know what I mean? It was terrible. And anyway, we were sitting there, and it was a really good. It was a really good video podcast, yeah, really good. And about, I don't know, 6 to 10 months later, I was sitting in my house and my doorbell rang. I went downstairs, and it was one of the girls that done the podcast, and she was really attractive, really pretty girl, and I know her sisters, Felicia and all that. I know her sisters very well, and I couldn't believe when I see her. She looked rough, man, and she had some bags. She said, "Look, can you look after these for me, because I've been chucked out of the place I was living at, and I've got nowhere to go. No one should look after this stuff." I said, "Well, you're welcome to stay here." But she said, "No, I'm with Jeff." I said, "Jeff who?" She said, "Jefferson King." And I looked out, he was parked down the road a little bit, looked out, I thought, no, it can't be Jeff. Mate, this geezer looked like death. He looked like death, mate, and I couldn't believe it. And I shouted out Jeff, and he was too embarrassed to turn around and even look at me. You know, whether or not he could hear me, I don't know, but he looked rough. So, I mean, he was just next door, but he looked rough, mate, I couldn't believe it. And she said, look, she came upstairs, she said, you ain't got some money, have you? You can give me. I've got no money, and I've got to get a place with Jeff. I said, look, yeah, I'll give her 200 quid, but I knew straight away that the money I'll give her was going to go on the gear anyway, you know what I mean? But I'll give it because of Jeff and because of her, you know, I love Jeff and I loved her, yeah. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to see them with nothing, they can come and stay here, but I don't really want them when on that thing, you know what I mean? Because I've stopped all that, I didn't need all that, I was an IPP, I didn't really need them in my gaff, yeah. So I left it, you know, and the next thing I know, that Jeff gets a big bit of bird down to the Berbick Road in Acton, where he had the guy hostage for about £1,000, I think it was, you know, and tortured him a little bit and all that game. He got a 6, I think, and I couldn't believe it, mate. I couldn't believe the guy that I see years ago and what he was like, and powerful, big man, 22, 23 stone, a giant of a man, ex-Marine, could really have it on the cobbles, could have a right fight, to go to that extreme. Mate, it just knocked my pipe out, you know. And it just, what do you call it? It just disappeared. But before that, you know, he got his bit 6 years or whatever he got, but before that, I was in the scrubs, and I was in a place called the Connerby, yeah? And it was a drugs unit. And at that time, I was being on that shit, but I was in a drugs unit and it really helped me. That was the time Pete Doherty was there, yeah? But also Jeff come in. And when I see him walk in, I couldn't believe it, you know? He was gaunt and gone, mate, you know? And I looked after him, I gave him lots of food, tried to give him what I could give him, you know. And then I said to the screwy, I said, look, any chance of getting him in the gym? He said, well, I've got to talk to the PTIs. Well, as luck was have it, the two PTIs that was at the scrubs at that time was one called Johnson and one called Rodwell. Well, Johnson and Rodwell was PTIs at my YP when I was there. So that was years ago, but they were still the actual PTIs, yeah? So when I see them, when I walk to the gym, I said, look, Jefferson King's just come. I said, any chance of getting him in? He went, ooh. But they knew, everyone knew he was there because he was famous, wasn't he? You know, he was like, from Gladiators, he was the powerhouse of Gladiators, wasn't he? I mean, everybody knew Jefferson King Gladiator. He was the governor when he used to bash him up, you know. Everybody loved him. Everybody watched him. They watched Wolfie, but more so Jefferson King, yeah, because he was #1, you know. And they sort of like said, yeah, there's no problem, mate. Get him in. You know, I said, well, it's not down to me to get him in. It's down to you to come down to the Connerby and say, look, you know, yeah, you can come to the gym. So he come down, Johnson, and he was talking to me, and he spotted Jefferson King, and he never said too much to him, you know. And he looked round, and I said, Jeff, come over. Jeff come over, and I said, this is Jefferson King from Gladiators. He went, how do you do? He shook his hand, mate, like a proper gentleman, you know what I mean? He looked from the screw, that's good, you know what I mean? And he shook his hands, and he said, listen, you want to come down the gym? So Jeff said, yeah, but I'd love to be a gym all lead. He said, listen, you will never be a gym all lead. You know, you're here on drugs, it's the drugs unit, and no way can you do that, you know what I mean? You're on methadones and all sorts of things, you can't do it. And the people you'll be meeting in the gym, no, you could be doing all sorts of things, no, you can't. I'd love you in there to show people how to do the weights and all that, because no one's better than you, Jeff. I mean, you know more about it than I do, and Mr. Rodwell. But no, you can't, mate. And he was gutted, you know what I mean? But he come to the gym with me and he started training with me, and he was so weak. He was so weak. It was a shame to see this guy, but everybody loved him because he was Jefferson King. Everybody was wrapped around him, and they was taking notes of what he was doing. I mean, I was doing what I always do, certain exercise, but Jeff pulled away from me, but he still done the same. So when I go in there and do my bench, he'd come in and do a little bit, but he'd do his own thing. He'd round me, he would do it round me, but not, you know, and the exercises he was doing was phenomenal, yeah. And about, what, I suppose 6 to 8 weeks later, you know, was to go down there every afternoon and morning sometimes, twice a day sometimes, it all depends. But Jeff could only go once, I could come twice because of the work I was doing. And mate, he blew up. He blew up like a pump. Like I put a pump in him. And he started getting shape and looking good. I mean, you know, the PTI got on me, Rodwell, and he said to me, is he on the gear? Is he taking stuff? I said, listen, he's in the conobare. He can't take no drugs like that because he's under medication. Got doctors in there always there with you. He hasn't taken anything like that. They spot it straight away. It's just that it's memory, innit? It's body memory. He said, yeah, maybe it is, but he's looking too big, mate. And he was getting massive. His shoulders were getting huge. Anyway, cut a long story short, I get moving out and all this, that and the other. And then Jeff gets a 6, doesn't he? Or something, 5 or 6. And then he comes out and I meet him at, I think it was, what's the station? I forget now. Not Rainer's Lane, not White Step. Anyway, so I met him at the station and, you know, give him some money. And me and Terry went to a pub and we were all sitting down talking. And it was nice, you know, we sat down, ate food. And Jeff was very slow eating, very slow, you know, and it was like, you know, like in prison, sometimes you just like to get around your food and let no one else take it, but who's going to take it off him is massive. Don't forget, Jeff was also in the Marines, you know. He was a big guy and he was in America, in the Marines in America, so you can imagine he ain't no fault. He's an handful, you know, it's an handful fault, you know, but he can march on, mate, Jeff. I'll see him on the bag, you know, and kicking the bag, mate. He's what, 6'1", 6'2", maybe 6 foot. He's tall and he's big, mate. He was kicking up in the air like you wouldn't believe it, and not off balance, you know. And he could have it, you know what I mean? That's what all of the Marines. He learned all that, you know. And when I first, as I say, when I first met him, Jefferson King from the Gladiators, and he come to Central Park. And I looked at his geezer, man, when he come through the door, he was as big as the door. Huge, wide as anything, yeah. And he had these glasses on, you know, sort of tinted glasses. And he looked, mate, he looked proper. You know what I mean? If you go to a club and see this guy in the door, you know, you go, hold up. But sometimes you see people on the door with glasses, it puts you, it's not the same, is it? It's a bit more weaker. You feel a bit more weaker, but he was a powerful man, you know. And, you know, whatever went on in the club, the time that me and him fell out, me and Jeff fell out, I was a bit upset with Dog Woodall, you know. Doug Woodall, he's got one of the best channels on YouTube, Dog Woodall. Without a shadow of doubt, I should imagine it's one of the best, yeah. But he, more or less, him and Jefferson King, he goated Jefferson King. They must have talked about it before, and they run me down, yeah. They run me down, made me look a right idiot, you know what I mean? And for Doug Woodall to do that, I couldn't believe it. I thought, you know, because I was going to go on YouTube with Doug Woodall long before Jeff, maybe a year before Jeff even got on there. But certain things happened that I couldn't go on it, you know. But for Doug to do that to Jeff, like you could sell that this thing had been arranged, what they was going to come out with, it knocked my pipe out. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe what Jeff said. And, it was just one of them things that really hurt me. And the way Jeff talked about this and about that and about me, and I thought, Jeff, mate, I thought you was a proper man. I thought Jefferson King was a proper man, yeah? And the time that we met Jeff, me and Terry, and give him money, and we had dinner, and I brought him back to this place, and he come back another day, and he come to my place and went to the gym, and he was over the moon with the gym. He said he could do with this, another cross trainer, he could do with another treadmill, he could do with this, he could do with that, he could do with this. And Terry Ali said, look, if you want that, if you're going to train here, I will get you everything that you want, everything. I will buy you, get this gym together nice for you. And Jeff said, yeah. And the next day, Jeff come, and he went, I was talking to some people that I know that want to do one-to-one bodybuilding or training or whatever. He said, that'd be good. So I've asked them to put X amount of money up front, this, that and the other. They're going to come here for maybe 6 weeks at a time. I asked them to put X amount of money up front. They're going to do this, but they're going to do that. But the way he come out with something, it was something that he wanted some money. He wanted to do this or do that and get something that he wanted. And Terry Ali's a businessman, and he smelt the rat, Terry. He went, no, I don't like it, Ray. This is the third time he's been here, and it's the third time that we've given him 200 quid, 300 quid, and let's get this together. We should all be getting together now and working out how we're going to do it instead of keep giving him more money. Keep giving him more money because he says he's in the hospital and he needs more money. And he got to a stage that, it was enough. It was enough. And he just disappeared. He phoned, disappeared. The next time that I heard he was around was when he was down in Harrow, and he was working at Gold's Gym in Harrow, which used to be a cinema, yeah? It was Gold's Gym, I believe he was working in there, or training in there. And the next thing you know, was when he had the Doug Woodall turn out, when he'd done one with Doug Woodall, and Doug Woodall was supposed to give him a lump of money to get him on YouTube, or to get him on TikTok or Instagram. I don't know if he's on it. I've not heard people say that he's got his own channel, which I hope he has. Because Doug Woodall, even though Doug Woodall upset with what he did, Doug Woodall's a proper man. And if Doug Woodall thinks he can help him, he would help him. And if he's helped him, and he's been kicked up the orchestras, and then Doug Woodall's got to understand what this guy's about. But please God, people that watch this today would let me know if Jefferson King is about. Is he got his own channel? Is he doing it? Is he interviewing people? It'd be nice to know, because for Jefferson King to do a YouTube, he would get so many people, especially bodybuilders, and he knows so many people, Jeff, he would get interviews nearly every other day. He'd earn a fortune from YouTube because people would view his channel. They'd love Jeff, and he talks really well. The only thing I was a little bit upset about, I'm not running Jeff down, but the only thing I was a little bit upset about, when he was with Doug Woodall, he was soaking wet. He was sweating like he was on something there bad, yeah? He was on something, it might have been Jeff. A lot of them Jamaican people, where he comes from, Guyana, Guinea, whatever he comes from, America, where he comes from. But a lot of black guys really sweat, and he was really sweating, and it looked to me that he was maybe on something myself there, But I hope not, and I hope that Doug Woodall, as give him what he was going to give Jeff, and Jeff's got his own channel, and he's going forward. I want that for Jeff. I don't want to see Jeff back on the thing. Yeah, I don't want to see him back Southall, because that was Jeff's little haunt, Southall. He loved Southall because that was a big place where he could get what he wanted and he could run what he wanted, you know. And he had a lot of girls that working for him at that time. Anyway, bang bang well. If you see Jefferson King, or you know about Jefferson King, wherever he is, let me know, yeah? Nice one.